kind of want to like go back a little bit, like in terms of like its connection to hip hop. Like, how do you guys like? What do you guys think about like the current state of hip hop today in terms of like writing, lyricism, song, song production, all this stuff, like compared to I guess the '90s, which is more, I think, more in line with the spoken word and the messaging, and then what it is today.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind starting. I think that, like, I don't have an issue with hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes people feel like, oh, if you're of a certain age, like you dislike hip hop or you feel like hip hop isn't, like, I don't have an issue with hip hop at all. For me, it's just all about the visibility. You know what I'm saying? I think that, because you can look back at the 90s and the 2000s and find groups whose lyricism maybe isn't where you wanted it to be. But at the same time, it's the same thing today, right? I don't want to go in the club, or go to a party necessarily and listen to Nas or listen to J. Cole. Like, I didn't do that in the 90s necessarily. You know what I'm saying? So it's just about variety and about the ability to access to all forms of hip hop, I think is what's just lacking today, where you really you got to get into those pockets to find the good stuff. But it's great stuff out there in the mainstream and in the underground, or in the places where people consider the underground. So I think hip hop is doing exactly what hip hop has always done. I think it's just sometimes the machine is kind of tuning out some of the things that should be brought to light. And so you just got to go find it, but with the internet, man, today, I feel like it's really, you can find whatever you want. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You can find whatever kind of hip hop you want. You want inspiration, you can find it. You want trap, you can find it. You want mellow, you can find it. You know what I'm saying? You just got to do the work to go get it. But it's out there. So I'm cool with hip hop today, because the voices of people who need to speak up are doing their thing. So, you know what I mean? So I'm cool.
Yeah, I say the same. I feel like in the 90s and even like early 2000s, there was a heavy emphasis on lyricism, and like people would listen to the lyrics first. Whereas now we're kind of in this age where it's the music that hits first, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, if it passes the vibe check, then I'll tune into like what the person is saying. And so I know that's one important element when we were approaching the project, was like, we need to make sure that the music hits, you know what I mean? And of course, the Varsity, they killed it. They got sample flipping in there, got some different vocalists, but I think that it's like, it changes with the generations. So, whether you grew up on, the first iteration of kind of hip hop, and then, depending on where your generation, I mean, even when you look at like Drake and Kendrick and J. Cole, they're like, what now, like 3 generations removed from the current artists that are out now. I think Andre 3000 put it the best in an interview he did with GQ, and he was like, hip hop is always going to be hip hop. And it's like, you can always hop, but you won't always be hip. And that's okay. So if you identify with a certain era of music, like, that's fine. But like, hip hop's still hip hop. We were all young and dumb at one point, and now it's like you grow up. So, yeah, man, I think it's beautiful. Like, it may not always be my cup of tea, but it's still beautiful.